My goodness me. G'day and welcome to part this of the XL250 restoration. That's enough. This is a good one. We get the cylinder head fitted, we clearance everything, we know it's all good. A couple of recoil inserts that I need to do yet, which is a bit of a setback, but not a big deal. The carburetor's on, it's looking really good. And we got a box in the mail, which is even better. Now, I'm playing a game of tennis at the moment. I'm not talking about tennis with a ball and a racket. I'm talking metaphorically, where I'm going between XL and XC all the time, and it's frustrating for you watching it. And I'm actually no better off because I don't know what's coming next either. I just do it as I feel like it. Yesterday, last night, I'm stripping paint off one of the XC doors, and I'm doing it against the clock, and I'm looking at the sky, and it's overcast. And you know, a little bit of rain, it doesn't matter that much. But when you get one drop that's that big, you think, let's get out of here.
No one cares.
No one cares. I'm talking, Susie.
Quick, help me get the washing in, it's raining.
It is raining. I've got to go and do the washing. Anyway, the heavens open, made a mess everywhere. Hope you enjoy. Suze. Right, so I've got this cylinder head back for the XL now. It's had 2 new valves put in. 2 new intake valves, they're poking out beautifully. These are the old ones here that they said were bent. Kind of rolled them around before, couldn't see where the bend was, but the guy that did it knew what he was doing, so there's likely to be some minuscule bend in both of them. They look right to me, but whatever the case. And it's all been done up, so that's all cool. Now, the one thing I don't like is the fact that it's got the old paint on it. And the hot tanks they use, or the chemical baths they use in engine reconditioning shops, are designed to get rid of all your scale and muck, but not paint. And this thing's been hydroblasted, so we've got to try and make it match. Now, I've got a bit of Scotch-Brite with a tiny bit of thinner, and I've done that bit there, but it still doesn't match the rest of the bike, or the rest of the engine. And so I'm just going to sort of persevere. I might use a new piece for this. Actually, I'll go and get myself a new piece. Well, this isn't new. This isn't new, but it's infinitely better than the bit we've got. We'll just cut it in half. I don't want any grit or anything getting in there, so I've got to be careful with this. But I just thought perhaps tiny bit of thinner. Drop some on there. And when you use Scotch-Brite with thinner, you'll find that it drains out. The thinner will drain straight out of the Scotch-Brite mega fast. But this will allow me to get in, and so far so good. I need to find a rag now. Here's one here. It will clean up, well, not too bad. So it already looks better there, and I've given it 3 seconds of work. So I'm going to continue doing that, but see, it looks pretty rubbish there. You can see the silver paint's coming off. You wouldn't dare hydroblast after all the work's been done, so I'm staying well away from these areas here. I should be wearing gloves, but I haven't got the solvent-proof ones. I'll just go around, and it seems to be making fairly light work of it, particularly with the thinner. You can do it without thinner, but that to me is already looking a lot better than it did. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. So I don't want to paint this, because if you paint it, it's the hottest part of the engine, and I just don't want peeling paint on a bike that I'm supposed to have restored. It would just give it a really cheap, nasty look, So it seems to be retaining in the Scotch-Brite quite well, so I think that's the answer there. Right, so giving it a bit of a going over. I tried to wet a bit of 1200 after I'd finished the Scotch-Brite to sort of give it a more uniform finish, but it didn't really yield any great result. Missed a bit there. I don't know what that is. I'll have to have a look at that again. Anyway, whatever the case. We do have a couple of things. It looks like the head was dropped and it's flared out there. So we'll get a file and just take that edge off it. And that might mean You can see I'm flattening out that edge there. It might just mean finish it with different papers to sort of blend it a bit. But if we can stop it looking like the thing was dropped, that would be good. Let's get a bit of this. Give it a clean, eh? Let's get this out of the way. Hang on a sec. It's a bit better. A little bit better. I might just... I don't know if we can get that much better actually. I might just taper off the bottom of it. Just to make it uniform from the side, because that's where you see it. That's a bit better. And we can use the file in these fins just to clean up everything. Just drop that in there and just run around it. Perhaps the bone would be better because it's softer, it's plastic. But it'll help the overall appearance of the bike. Right, I think that's about enough for there. I'm pretty happy with how it's all gone. Doesn't look as good as Hydro Blast, but it doesn't look that bad either. There are a few things we need to look at though here. We've talked about our bent valves. Oh, they're worn on the seat. I think that's why I replaced them. Of course, there are two gaskets from the exhaust ports. We bin those because we've got new ones. And finally, we have two dowels, which we actually need three. And I think one goes like 1, 2, 3 like that. I've got these studs. One's a big sucker that goes all the way in there. There's a little bloke here which goes in there. And don't forget, this is the one where the two intake valves are smacking on the other piston and made a mess of it. So I want to dummy fit this up to the block without any gasket, fixing the cam, the timing, all this sort of stuff, and tighten it down, not too tight, and rotate the engine by hand just to make sure we're not going to hit. And if it clears without a gasket, then at full tilt our rod stretch should be less than that, we hope. So I think we need to fit this into the engine now. Right, so we've got this socket down here in the crankcase, not sure you can see it. And we can use that to rotate the engine, get it to top dead center like that, which it was before, but no big deal. I'm going to use a bit of wax and grease remover, and I just want to clearance these valves. Ooh, put a lot there. I'm just going to wipe off there. And that was the problem area before the engine was rebuilt, where pistons and valves are hitting each other. Now, have I got a clean towel? Yes, I do. I'm just going to make sure it's nice and dry and lint, or what is it called, grease free. And I've got this blue tack. I'm not going to try this. Best stuff to use for this is plasticine, but I just want to just get a bit of it. And I'm just going to press it into the crown. The idea of this is so that valves will make a impression in them, and at least that's what the thinking is. So the next thing to do would be to make sure we don't clean the valves, because we don't want the blue tack sticking to those, so they can be nice and oily for a week and we can just bang the head back on. Once I'm peering into the engine, and I've got a socket down here, and if you look in there you'll see a T and an F. F is for fire and T is for top of the tenor, and if I move that there you can see it lines up with that casting mark at the top. And so in order to time these things you need to have that side cover on. So now we've done that, we can pop the cam in. Right, so I've got the cam lobes pointing down, so they're going to be rocking. There's a mark, no idea if you can see it, where's my little torch? There, which has to be level with the casing there, or the casting there, and the same on the other side. So I'm just going to walk the chain around until I get it there. Whoa, which is around about there, one more. It should be there, I reckon. So if I pop that cam gear back on there, I reckon it should be timed. So again, we shoot a torch in there, and that mark, don't know if you can see, is lined up. And those two marks there, and that one over there, should be lined up with that casting there. So hopefully that's it. Now I'm confident we got that right. I'm just going to pop a little bit more assembly lube on those faces. This is all coming off again. But the thing I made, the biggest mistake I made was I didn't check this before I pulled it apart, which was dumb. But it sort of worried me that that it had been hitting. I didn't know it had been hitting because it was supposed to be a good runner. So I'll whack some bolts in there and then we can check it. Oh, we're rocking. Oh, that goes there. It's definitely hitting that plasticine. Alright, now we pull it apart and see where it leads us. You can see here that is far too close for comfort. There's no gasket there, so its clearance is probably 40 thousandths less than it was. I'm not sure, but you can see how sort of close it's actually broken through in there. So we'll take that off, having a perfect understanding that it's not as good as we hoped. Oh, this is such a pain. So I'm just waiting for this to fill out. Our washing machine's died, I think I mentioned before. So we're doing it the old-fashioned way. It's filling up though. I'll bring it up to here. Also, then we'll give it a rinse. And then we'll get the wringer going. How funny is that? Right, so I've got this new machine. It's a little bit fancy. Makes all sorts of noises and all this sort of stuff. A little bit more advanced than the old one we had. Now, it hasn't got an agitator. It's got this sort of rotational thing down the bottom, spins and all that sort of stuff. Goes either way. Now these things retailed, I think, about $1,000. Good Guys had them on for $6.99. Now, I saw them online. It was David Jones, and whoops, turn it off. And $599. So I bought it, but just a word of warning. It took about 3.5, 4 weeks to get here. 3.5 weeks. So not very satisfactory. So if you do buy a machine, pay the extra $100 and just go to Good Guys, because you'll be waiting a long time for online stuff. You've got to wait for it to come to the warehouse. But the good thing is this box. We can use that in the garage. Probably just easier to stick your washing in here. That'll clean them. Well, it's time to revisit this XL fuel tank. Of course, we've stripped the paint. There's dried paint residue around here. That has to be wire brushed off around the neck, all in here. And on the drain cock underneath, that's sort of taped up as well, and sort of clean it all up. It's not fit to have any coating or anything put on at the moment. It really needs to be cleaned up well. So, if you remember last time, I ended up with wire hanging out of my skin. So we're going to use goggles, earmuffs, and of course gloves as well, so that we don't injure ourselves. Not that it hurt, I didn't feel it go in before, and it was in. The bit of stones was in my knuckle, about 5 millimeters, and I didn't even feel it, I didn't know. I pulled it out, there was a spot of blood, and it started to have that dull ache like a tetanus shot later, but I had a tetanus shot last year, so I should be right with that. I will start doing this. It's downright unpleasant using those discs, but we need them to get right into those areas there. Sort of all around here. And you can see how clean it is on that lip. And all under here. On these bits here, there's still a bit of residue there. I don't care about that. I can get that off. But it's just getting onto those lips. And the Y wheel is absolutely perfect for that. So I'm a little bit disappointed because this disc here, which is a Josco Brumby strip it disc, I bought this for the XW. And the problem I ran into was the XW was painted in a really poor enamel paint and would sort of gum it up. But by accident, I found it was really good with surface rust. Now this is an angle grinder attachment, so it's going to be spinning at, here you go, maximum 11,000 RPM. Now the only thing I can get is a drill one, and I don't really want that. It's designed to go to 4,500, which is nearly as quick, and it's the same brand and what looks like a very similar sort of fibrous plastic material on it. The you can get ones similar, but not that brand, which haven't got the nut. They're sort of clamped in like a cutting disc. Around $30. That was 18. Look, we'll give it a go. I'm not expecting huge things, but we'll give it a shot now. Oh, it still works. Does put a bit of heat in though. To show you what I'm talking about. You haven't got the control that you do with an angle grinder. That's the thing I don't like. The other thing I like about these, I liked about the other one, the angle grinder, as I said, gives you more control. That blue staining is just the material on here coming off. But it doesn't take metal off, it just sort of, I mean it must take some off, but it's not like a flat wheel. So we'll just continue with that, and I'll come back in a moment. You can see some pitting there, but it does a marvellous job getting rid of the bulb. Now I'll put a bit of phosphoric acid on that. I shouldn't be touching it. Today's warm, and sweaty fingerprints on bare metal like that will rust straight away. My brother, when I stripped the roof of the XW, came around and he felt it like that, and the following day there was a rusty mark on the roof which I had to get rid of. So what this is going to do is it's going to clean the surface right up. And you can see all the rub marks or the grinder marks I've made with it. So I'm going to go around and do this. And I'll turn the machine on when I'm finished. And there we go. A nice, clean steel tank. Got a dent there in the back, we know about that. A couple of small pock marks, which we'll put a bit of phosphoric acid on. But that's looking pretty good. Another dent there. But that's how we want it to look. Good old fashioned bare metal. So, there's another thing you can use. You can use one of these things, and this is a brilliant thing. This has got water in it at the moment. That's a sort of a thinner's bottle. Painters use them. And you can put water in them. Good for topping up batteries. Good for also checking manifold leaks, air leaks in carburetors and manifolds, that sort of thing. That's what I use it for. You can mix water with white vinegar and make a vinegar water solution for rust prevention. I haven't done it on that, but that's another avenue you can take. I'm just using phosphoric acid, and that's what I'm more comfortable using. But there is a guy, my friend Pete. He does bodywork stuff on YouTube. Swears a lot and yells at the audience, you know, I'm teaching you and all this sort of stuff, and you better effing watch and all this sort of business. But there are some good tips to be had from old school tradesmen. Another thing worthy of mention is this disc, the drill attachment type, went really well. I can't complain about that. It jumped around a bit when I first used it because it's very square on that edge, but once I sort of wore it in a bit, it did a cracking job. So yeah, the lower speed 4,500 RPM drill one is fine to use. So the first thing we're going to do, wax and grease remove all this. We need it clean. A little bit dirt there. Just want to reset that tensioner back, give it a squeeze, tighten the nut. That'll hold that in. Pop 3 dowels in. This one here, a dowel doesn't fit in there, so we just put it there. And there's an all-important gasket O-ring that goes around there. Without that, we're going to have oil going everywhere. And it's this little bloke. And he goes down in there. Oh, hang on a second. It's like a compression fit. Like that. And then of course we've got a head gasket. That way, there's the bigger hole there for this. So it goes this way. Is that right? Yes, the rubber protrudes a little bit. I don't want to damage the bastard though. Hang on a second. Just be careful of that when we put the head in. On. What have I forgotten? Nothing. I think we're good. Oh, one more thing. I'm just going to pop a tiny bit of anti-seize in there. I don't want it getting up around where the head gasket is. So I'm just going to lower that. Come here. Just down the bottom. And then screw these in. Only a touch of it though. And there's also another stud, this one here, which goes in there. I'll just put a tiny bit on the end of that. Just one of those things I like to do. I think I mentioned previously that shoulder on that stud needs to be well below the level of the gasket. I'm going to do it from over there, here, because I know you can't see as well, but I need to be able to see absolutely clearly what I'm doing. And my little humble garage doesn't allow for it. Head is easier to put on. There we go, that's it. With the tensioner slack. 4 head bolts. Each has a washer to protect the aluminium from the head, and I'm going to, once again, a bit of anti-seize, but I'm also going to put it underneath the washer, so when we torque it up, we're not going to gall or anything like that. Now ARP use the same thing, or a similar, very similar product on their stud sets and stuff like that for their engines, because what it does is it gives you a more accurate torque reading if the thing can slide around. And we're going to just nip it down to 28 foot-pounds. Hey, come back. Let's do it in a couple of stages, I think. Actually, and a lot of engineers will tell you it's feet pounds, not pounds feet. Most of the time it's written in the literature as foot pound or feet pound. I don't know. I'm not worried as long as I get the right amount of what do you call it? Tension on it. I'm gonna put these nuts on. I'm gonna do these up by hand. These are bastards. Hang on. Come out of there. Come on. What are you doing? These little guys. They sort of fit underneath. And so I'm just going to do them up with the spanner. It's probably the wrong thing to do, but I reckon David did the same thing. Right, I want to talk about valve time. It's a real little pain on these things. These things run, or Honda engines seem to run on a knife edge of clearance. I'm assuming most motorbikes do. The car ones they enable, or they allow on a small block Chevy or a Ford, 100,000 clearance, and that will give you 100,000 being 2.5 millimeters, all that room valve to piston clearance so that when the thing's running at full tilt, all those heavy pistons and so forth, a bit of rod stretch, they're still going to clear. These things don't. I'm assuming the gasket thickness I measured before at 50 thousandths. So 50 thousandths is 1.25 millimeters. So I'm assuming that's the only clearance that's there. Now these things rev a lot higher than a car engine, I think about 9,000 RPM or something, but there's a lot less mass in the conrod and piston, a lot less weight. So I'm just going to pop a bit of assembly lube on those journals. I'll pop the cam in. Now the other thing is this. When you retard the valve timing, and retarding's not a bad thing to do because you lose a little bit off the line in terms of torque, but you gain it in the top end. And the other way, advancing gives you more low end oomph and less top end. The difficulty with doing that is if you advance it too much, it's going to kick you in the guts. When you go to kick it over, it'll break your leg off. So this isn't a reality. We've got 38 teeth here. If we advance it one tooth, or retard it, sorry, one tooth, what that's going to do is effectively come up with something like 9.5 degrees of retardation on the valve timing, and that's just too much. It's not sustainable to do it with this engine. So we're stuck with using the standard valve timing, which, I mean, a tuner would be able to get away with not doing that, but I can't. I'm in a garage in my house and I haven't got special equipment or anything. Added to the fact that, you know, if you're going to advance retard valve timing, you sort of want to do it 1 or 2 degrees, you know, maybe 3 degrees. You don't want to do it 9. It's just far too much. So we'll stick this in. These are a bit of a pain to get in. I can't remember how I got it out actually. So we can walk the chain over to where it's level with the cylinder head castings, which is there, and then marry up that according to that, and we're good. Well, at least we hope we're good. I don't want the bastard to hit. I'm terrified of it. And being a car guy, this is quite foreign to me. The land of motorcycles, because everything's smaller and more condensed now, so they run at a much finer set of tolerances. That socket on the engine to tighten up those sprockets, I'm just going to release the chain tensioner down here and he'll let snap in. It's nice and tight. I've also got this one now. That top one, the manual says there's an O-ring there. What I'm going to do, there's no rebate for an O-ring and I can't find the right bolt. I think this had the wrong bolt in originally. I'm going to Honda bond underneath that, and that like hell doesn't leak. I might even pop a fibre washer in there, but that's going to be fine for now. I'm just going to rotate that back a bit. Hang on, I'm talking too much. If I, hang on, no, it goes back that way. Hold a bit of tension there, and then tighten up the tension up there. The timing chain in this bike looked good. It was the tensioner itself. That's good. There's no slack in there. That's awesome. The problem I had, I'm probably out of focus now. See the intake opening? Still out of focus. And we come up, we're on a power stroke, hang on a second. I'm just sorry I can't illustrate it better. You can't really see the piston. Yeah, I can't illustrate any better than that. I'm sorry, I just can't. But you can't really get a look at the piston there. I think it's coming up now. I've got a light shining. Oh, hang on, this might be better. See that? I had a good look. And there's the intake opening there. I might move that over. I was worried about that clearance. I was worried about that clearance there as the intake's opening. That was the problem I had. Cup of tea. So there's a couple of things here. We've got a bit of assembly lube leaking out of there. This rocker box has to come off. That's only there temporarily. I've got to put a couple of recoil inserts in here. I'm not taking the head off, that's there to stay. I'll mask off everything so I don't get any, what do they call them, filings anywhere. And I'll recoil, I'm going to recoil those two and that one in there as well. The rest of them are healthy. Those ones aren't. So there was a bit of thread. Oh, I can't remember where it is. I saw it before. It was on the end of a bolt. Anyway, look, that has to be repainted. The covers have to be repainted. These need to be cleaned up, and the sprocket cover needs to be repainted as well. So that bit can stay there. Got a sparky plug. That can just sit there for now. If I can get the bastard started, here we go. And I can just put this little cover down here on the alternator cover. About the only thing I'm going to do now is fit the carburetor. We're missing the clip. We've only got one because the carburetor initially, that's the little manifold piece, had a conventional Jubilee clip. You can see all the teeth marks in it there. So there was a Jubilee clip there originally. So we'll pop that on now and fit the carby. It might mean loosening off the airbox as well. So we need to do a workshop cleanup here. It's a mess. I'm just going to pop this gasket out, or O-ring. Where's my dentist tool? Hang on a sec. Here we go. Oh, I need my other glasses. I've got this camera set up too well. Hang on a second. Let me just muck around with this a bit. There we go. Alright. Look how much easier that makes the job so much better. There's a bit of crap on there too. So we'll get a blade and get rid of all that. Oops. Need to figure what size bolts fit that in. Alright. I think we've got the shouldered ones. I think originally they used the 8mm shouldered ones, but there's a 6mm thread and they seem to fit alright. So that little gasket has some retainers there, so we can pop him over somehow. I think we'll roll it back and then get it in, and that way it'll retain. There we go. Sometimes if they keep flicking out, you can actually twist them and push them in that way, and that sort of torsional stress will keep it in line, if you know what I mean. So this being the carburetor, which is rather spiffy, this goes, how does this go? This goes like, no, it goes like that. That will just fit over, but I'm going to have to put this on, given it's the only one we've got, and then that will squeeze in, and it's like a moon thing in there, like that, and then we can twist it and do a final fit in the bike. Right, so ready to put it on. I've pulled the airbox out of the way. Even though I'm confident these are fine, I'm just going to stick something down there and check the depth of those threads, so that when we put our carburetor on, we're going to pop this in, and where you can see straight away our carburetor is at the very wrong trajectory. Get the other one. Oh, I've just done myself a real disservice here. And the bike is going to land on my T the way I'm going. There we go. Start him up. Now I can straighten out the carb. And Dave has more eye candy. It doesn't run yet, but he has eye candy. Here's his phone. Let's get to the bottom one with the spanner, I think. It's going to be much easier. It's getting there, isn't it? Looking pretty good. The rubber thing's chipped off. I'll have to brush touch that because Dave's fussy. He always comes across as happy-go-lucky, but he's going to notice crap work pretty quickly. There we go. Let's pull that Jubilee down. It's not even a Jubilee, I don't know what you call that. And make sure the carburetor is nice and even. We can sort of tighten that up. Pulled that rear guard off to push this airbox in. Bring it up from the rear. The Americans use that sort of term where it comes to racing and stuff like that when people are coming up from behind. In Australia that means something a bit different. Bring it up from the rear. So hang on a second. I've got to work out what to do with that hose. There's a manifold of hoses that go on for the crankcase ventilator. Have a look at. Someone sent me a link. I did the Merry Christmas, everyone. You know, thanks for your support video, and someone sent me a link to Cy Cranston's Christmas twist, and it is absolutely fantastic. I'd never heard of Cy Cranston. Cy being short for Simon. He's an Englishman who does this retro Merry Christmas video, and I absolutely loved it. I watched it about 5 times. Showed my daughter, and he's a really talented bloke. I've never heard of him. I think he began life, well, not begun life. I think he was originally a busker in London, and he sort of got more and more successful. But he's a wonderful artist. Have a look at that, Cy Cranston's Christmas twist. If you Google it, I think it's about 2 million views or something at the moment. 500,000 of those are mine. Oh, I think that's the right band for that. I'm fairly sure it is. But let me just get the camera up in a moment. I'll double check those things, and we'll do a few closing comments. So there you have it, another XL video. Bit more painting to do, as I said up here, and we'll touch up that bolt and we'll repaint this cover down here. So we're moving ahead quite well. What's the other thing I was going to mention? A couple of setbacks. They're not big ones, of course. We need to recoil. I mentioned that. I think we're clearing. That's a big deal on these things. So there is one more bit of really good news, and it's a box full of spokes. There are 2 types of spokes for these. There's several types actually. There's the 7880 and the 81. This is the earlier type that uses the smaller rear brake drum. It looks tidier, and so we've gone for these. These are zinc. You can also get stainless, but these came in at, how much were they? I think they're like 130 bucks a lot. That's including postage, because they came from Thailand by way of Japan. They're actually a Japanese product. If you get them done locally in stainless, they're sort of $206, I think, or $200 an end. So it's like $412 just in spokes. Then you have to relace them and so forth. So on that note, I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. Enjoy your classic, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.